Good afternoon, everyone. It's 4 o'clock. I think we're good. Are we good?
Great one.
Oh, there's Fred. Not just make sure we're on.
Santa Claus.
Here's Tommy. We are calling this July 12th, Tuesday, July 12th, regular town council meeting to order. We have flipped it so we do an executive session when we need it at the beginning of our council meeting. So if we could call this meeting to order, all of council is present, and start by the Pledge of Allegiance. Me, Fred has prayer. Okay, followed by Mayor Pro Tem. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Most Heavenly Father, we come now looking to you for your wisdom, Father, and for you give us the ability to lead and to serve all in the same manner of respect, dignity, and diligence. Father, I ask that you give us all your peace so that we may help heal this world. These and all other blessings, in your Son Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Moving on to adoption of the agenda. Mr. Steese, any changes on that?
No, ma'am.
If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we move for a motion to move into executive session for two items. The personnel matters regarding town council appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. That's FOIA 3470A1. And discussions relating to the acquisition of ghost roads in and around Old Town, and that is FOIA Act 3470A2.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That's unanimous. During executive session, we leave so that your guests can stay here, and we'll come back out and we'll start our council meeting and any action from executive session. We're out of executive session. No votes were cast, no action was taken, but there is action from executive session when council gets to their seat. Could you go ahead?
You just talk here.
We are out. Council, we've got a council meeting. We're out of executive session. We have some action from executive session. We're in a council. We have action from executive session. Is there a motion to reappoint George Bailey to the Law Enforcement Citizens Advisory Committee? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Regarding the Law Enforcement Citizens Advisory Committee, is there a motion to approve the resolution amending the rules of procedure for the Town of Bluffton Law Enforcement Citizens Advisory Committee that was presented to us?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Are those procedures going to be online so the public can see them? Because they wouldn't be part of the packet.
They'll be on Municode.
Okay. All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Is there a motion to appoint Carletha Frazier to the Historic Preservation Commission?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Moving on to adoption of the minutes. We had two meetings. One were the regular meeting minutes of June 14th. I've had a chance to look those over. Are there any changes? If not, is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say it by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And then we had a special meeting on June 21st. Any changes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say it by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. That's unanimous. Public comment. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Gammon.
Okay, Sharon Brown had a comment, but she wanted me to let you guys know she could not be here. Then we have Andrew Keel.
Oh, here.
It's okay, you can go ahead and get us.
So for those who are new to public comment, when you come up, please address your concerns to council. Try to confine yourselves to the questions under our jurisdiction. Be mindful and respectful and state your name and address because we need it for the minutes.
All right.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Andrew Keel. I live at 22 Trail Ridge Retreat in Bluffton, South Carolina. I wanted to comment on the growth because I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's a potential Pulte subdivision coming in behind our current subdivision, Midpoint and New Riverside. It's in, I guess, development. We'll go into the planning commission next time. But anyhow, I just want to talk about growth in general. First, I wanted to mention, I don't know if you guys are aware, but power in my neighborhood's been going out just about every day for the past month for sometimes 5-10 minutes, sometimes off and on. But, you know, if I'm having problems with my power now, with all the development going on in New Riverside, I'm not sure the grid can actually handle it. So I'm not sure how much weight the Minjins will serve notice actually has, because there's issues now. And if you've been on next door, you'll see that other people have been commenting about their power being out. Anyhow, first thing. Second thing is the schools. Carol Crutchfield seems to speak at just about every meeting that I've been to, which is only 2, stating that Bluffton schools are over capacity. Some like 6 of the 11 are, and the other ones are going to be over capacity soon. I know in New Riverside, there's the lakes, the rental place, I'm not sure what that is, the landings, potentially this new Pulte subdivision. Now, I assume there's 400 houses going in behind my house. I don't know how many houses are going in the lakes or the landings, but that's quite a few more people that are probably going to be going to schools. And just concerned about that in general. I know that you guys don't have control over that, but anyhow, you have a bit of control over the developments, and maybe things should slow down a little bit now. Next thing, and this kind of ties into the PUDs and growth. New Riverside Road, I don't know if you've driven down it lately, but it's kind got some holes on the side of the roads, and the manholes are sticking up in multiple places where the road's sunk, probably because Cleveland truck's been driving down them over constantly. But anyhow, the HOA, New Riverside Association, Inc., controls it. I have no idea who's on that committee, how to get in touch with them. I emailed Will Howard, who I believe is some planning development person over in Palmetto Bluff, and he said they did some repairs and more will be done when they're necessary. Well, I mean, he must think lousy roads are okay, because if somebody drops a wheel on a foot drop, they're going to damage their car and somebody might get injured. Anyhow, these PUDs have come into existence and the master plans and all this stuff. I just think it's time for the town to get tough on these developers. My subdivision, well, thank you. Thank you for your time. I'll come next time and finish.
Absolutely. Then we have time to respond with comments from mayor and council, but we don't respond after each public comment. So, Ms. Damon?
Sydney Holland.
Thank you for accepting me. Sydney Holland at 31 Bainbridge Way. Just real briefly, I'm coming in regards to Baynard Park, which is going to be affected by the new Headwaters development at some point. I believe they're going to connect the stoplight there on the main 278 road. We live on that road at Baynard Park, so we're about 200 plus or minus feet from the actual one-lane or two-lane street now. One concern, the community wanted to respond more, but they didn't have enough, I guess, time to plan to be here. Possibly extending this to get a little more comment would be helpful. Basically the concern is the amount of traffic that's going to increase from that light being connected. Right now we're, a car every 2 to 3 minutes or so. Now we're going to have constant flow of cars coming, behind our house, which would possibly affect our values for our property is one concern. The noise level is another concern. When you come out of our community with the current traffic load, you have to be careful when you're coming out of that road in order not to get hit, because that's a kind of a blind curve on both sides. So as they hit that curve, if they're speeding, sometimes they do, you have to be very careful. And we have kids and everything that cross over from Parkside and everything. Possible consideration of a 4-lane stop sign there if you guys move forward with the light connection. Highly against any 4-laning of that road. Everybody is. It would drastically affect our values in Baynard Park and Parkside. That's about it. You're definitely going to possibly have, because during the morning time when the school's coming along, or if you have a fire situation, the fire trucks are coming out, that light at Buckwalter and Hampton Lakes is going to be, it's already backed up now a lot of times when the school's in. It's going to dramatically increase that problem. But that's about it. Just think about those things as you go through that process of finalizing whatever agreement is for the master plan on that section. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Robert Gold.
Yes, I'm Robert Gold. I live at 230 Blythe Island Drive, which is Island West Community. And my comments this morning will be primarily for Headwaters development. And please understand, we are not against any development. We're only concerned how it will impact our neighborhood. I am one of 5 board members of the directors of our community, Island West. More importantly, my home or my property is one of 2 that will be the most impacted by this development. I was unable to attend your first meeting, but I fully support what Mr. Cuff presented to you, and it seems like we are going to be able to work with the developer. I would ask, unless I've erred, I could not find anything within your website and so on that policy on working orders or hours for construction. I would ask you to consider two things. Due to the number of developments in that area, I feel a traffic study would be warranted before final approval is given to that development. The other thing is, I would ask, if it's not in anywhere I'm able to find, that you consider a work hour schedule for that development, such as no weekends or holidays and reasonable hours during a normal workday. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we'll give you some feedback when we finish with public comment.
Thank you.
Jim Cuff?
Jim Cuff, 233 Blythe Island Drive, also Island West. I'm talking with Southeastern Development. They have agreed to put up fencing along our property line. I just want to reiterate, it's the total property line, not just the residential, because it backs up, it hits holes 11, 12, and also the driving range. We would like that privacy fenced along there. The other comment is, I've taken a couple of trips down Hampton Parkway, and once, my understanding is that the Phase A, B, and C on this program, you're going to request that the Hampton Parkway be finished from the Y all the way up to the light. And with the Parkside, Baynard Park, the new apartment development going on right on the corner of Buckwalter, the 300 apartments here, Island West, and I guess they're all going to meet at Toyota Drive and whatever we're going to name the thing coming out of there. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming to one central point, and you're not going to be able to put a light there because it's only about 200 yards from the light that's going to be on 278. I think you may want to take a look at some sort of traffic mitigation, like I don't know, a roundabout or something, because if it's a two-way stop sign, it's going to be backing up traffic, and when you back up traffic, people get tired of waiting, and they start jumping the signs. And if it's a four-way, I think the roundabouts have a better way of keeping traffic flow moving. You may want to take a look at that. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's nice to see new faces. I will, real quick, before we get to mayor and council comments, we do a mobile town hall now, and we had done one here for the new Riverside area. But if there's something that maybe we can help you with so many new people moving to the area, to understand what's been approved decades ago, to what's going on, to how you can get involved, please reach out to our town manager, Stephen Steves, and we'll make sure all that's on Facebook. So, council comments or anything from y'all?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say again, the July 4th celebration, which took place on July 2nd, was a home run, and I thought the town did a stellar job. I know Mr. Steves pushed for this, and it was a great event. I've heard nothing but positive feedback. I'm wearing my tie for celebration of that event. Staff did a tremendous job in planning. This event will continue to grow, so I think you're going to have to look at that into the future. But I also want to commend the staff, because I saw them out there working as soon as this event ended, doing pick up and clean up, and then they were back the next morning, and our town looked just like it had never been touched. And so those folks in Public Works and then everybody involved did a stellar job, Stephen, so please pass that on.
Anything else? Just a couple maybe comments on the public comment. New Riverside Road is a private road owned by Common Bluff. And if we have your email, I don't see the public comment cards, but we can get someone to email you on who that contact is regarding that road. We do have working hours, and I'm looking at who comes up. We do have working hours with our projects. And if you ever think we're straying from it, and I don't understand our website sometimes either, but again, on that comment, we can send you a link to the website showing where our hours are, and if we ever need to make if someone comes for a reason, say pouring cement or some weird reason that it has to be done in the middle of the night, they always come to council to ask us if we feel that's necessary. And we do take into consideration residents. So, but we do have working hours. And off the top of my head, I don't know what they are, but I know. Do you want to say quickly?
Sorry, just real quick. It's Monday through Saturday, 7 to 7, Sunday, 7 to 12.
Monday through Saturday, 7 to 7, and Sunday, 7 to 12. So please send a letter.
12 to 7.
Excuse me. Monday through Saturday, 7 to 7. Sunday, 12 to 7. So we can send you that link. Hampton Parkway, we actually own. I'm not really sure if anyone up here understands why we decided to own and build that road, but we did. And for those of you who may be new, that road was a thoroughfare from 278 to Bluffton Parkway. And when the county and state widened that road, they were actually going to cut that off. And we fought for that because we thought the residents in those neighborhoods needed to have access to 278 if for only a reason to turn right. So it was a thoroughfare. So you might be new to the area and not realize that. But we do own it. I don't know a reason why this council would ever consider four-laning it, but it comes to council. So that's a good thing, and you vote for us. So we will listen to your concerns. And then the mobile townhome, I can't stress enough how important that is with new residents and older residents to participate in our mobile town halls. Our social media is far easier to maneuver than our website, but it's always on our social media. And the one on the project coming before us on connecting and privacy fence, we'll address that when we get that item on the agenda. So I think I covered everything. Sound good? Okay, next is a workshop item. And this first one is Kevin, direction and input on the consideration of the amendments to the Town of Bluffton's Muni Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 5, 5.1518, building types M, river house, as it relates to maximum footprint and height. And for new residents and new audience, you can always go on our agenda center on our website, which is easy to find. It's at the bottom of our main page, and you can actually follow along and see the links to everything we get, you get. So there are hyperlinks on all of this, and you can go back and look at that later on if you don't have a laptop or anything with you tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you stated, we're here. This is a workshop item for some direction from you guys, some input on consideration of possible amendments specifically for the design standards as it relates to the river house and the maximum footprint and building size. Just to give you some background information, in the Riverfront Edge Historic District, and I'll show you a map here where those properties are located, we have specific building types. In this case, we have a river house building type. Some of the concerns that have been brought up to staff is, you guys remember about 1.5 years ago when we made changes to the ordinance to restrict the footprint of buildings, we made a statement that applied to all footprints in all buildings, or in all the zoning districts, that put a cap. There was a cap on the maximum amount of footprint for a building that was allowed. So what happens is that in this particular case, we actually have an applicant that's interested in expanding on their property, and it's a single-story property, but they are limited in the footprint. So I'm going to go through that a little bit, just kind of giving you some background information as to one of the reasons why we're here for your input. So as you can see, I've highlighted, we have a size range for the river house, which is 2,000 to 4,800 square feet. And it says a height of 2 stories to 2.5 stories, and then also that maximum footprint of 2,000 square feet. So that I highlighted that area specifically just to let you know we're going to be focusing on that. This is an example of a river house. So it has the vernacular style main structure, and then typically has wings on either side. This is that Riverfront Edge Historic Zoning District. So you can see there are approximately 32 lots that are located in that district. And I've just kind of highlighted just so you can see Oyster Factory Park, as well as Church of the Cross, where those are located, just to give you a reference point. 22 of those lots are currently constructed as single-family residents, so they've already been developed. And then you also have Church of the Cross, Wright Family Park, Oyster Factory Park, and then most of the homes that are constructed are not river houses. So here's some of the examples of other homes in that district that do not meet that riverfront house building type. So it falls under that additional building type. Again, just to give you context. And then what's happening is that we found some inconsistencies with our code, and realizing that, as you can see, and I don't know if my mouse is not going to show up, but I've highlighted on that red area where you can see it says river house. And if you scroll all the way over to the right where it says height, it says 1.5. So we've designated that a river house height is typically 1.5 stories. But then if you look to the left, you'll notice that the height for a river house is 2 to 2.5 stories. So we found some inconsistency as we were going through this process. So that's definitely an item that we want to address to make sure that it gets cleaned up. So we did an analysis of all of the homes that are out there right now. And if you remember, we have that river house requirement of a maximum of 2,000 square feet footprint. I've highlighted a lot of these projects, and you can see, and I won't go through each and every one of them, but you can see that there's a majority of them that are already over 2,000 square feet in their footprint, as well as you can then see the height of them, which some are, 1 story, the majority are 1 stories, a few 2 stories, and then 1.5 stories. So we're already realizing that there is an issue that a lot of these homes, if someone wanted to come in to expand on their home, they're already non-conforming. So what we've done here also is just to try to provide that comparison of side-by-side of the river house that we talked about and the additional building type. So if a house does not fall under a specific building type, we go to that additional building type. It's kind of like a catch-all of structures. So you can see where we do allow for the heights and stories of the 1 to 2.5 stories. And that size range for the center hall is the 5,500, and that's at a 2.5 story structure. So to facilitate a conversation with you, we have a couple of suggestions here. The first one is we talk about the river house and additional building footprint, is to expand the building footprint of the river house and additional building types to allow it to where it's not to exceed that 4,800 square feet in overall size and only the 1 story. And what that is consistent with the front edge zoning district. The goal is that a lot of these homes that are already out there are 1 story houses, and if they want to do any type of expansion, even adding a bathroom or just a bedroom, they are already exceeding that maximum amount that's allowed. Again, back to this code, this data sheet right here. So you can see by having 4,800 square feet, I think there's 1 or 2 properties that would then exceed that, but the majority of them would then have that ability to be able to expand their home and still be under that footprint allotment. And again, this is specifically for the riverfront edge zoning district and specifically for the river house building type. So the one option is to expand the code to allow for that larger footprint. The other option is to not do anything at all. And what would happen is you'd then be required for any of those properties that do not meet that current requirement, that they're already over that maximum footprint that's allowed, they would have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals and request a variance because they have a hardship. And the reason that they have a hardship is that the majority of the homes were constructed prior to 2011, and our code came into being in 2011. So they were already in a non-conforming status when the code was created. So the options, and you just allow, so as on a case-by-case basis, someone would just then come in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals and request a variance to allow for any type of expansions on their property. or we can change the code to allow for that be by right. So that way they could just come in and be able to make the necessary expansions if they so choose. So those are the two options. Now, I did put, you can see on the third one here, that inconsistency that we found. That's definitely something that we want to address and update that, so update that information. So depending on how you guys decide to move forward with this, if we go with the UDO edits, at this time we would include updating those inconsistencies, or if you decide to stick with the variance option, we would then move those code edits over to our annual UDO update. So what we're doing is we're kind of keeping a running tally of any inconsistencies that we see that need to be updated, and we would bring all of those to you at one time, at one point during the year, just as a housekeeping item. So.
What is that time right now? What is the month you do that every year?
I think we put it in the pipeline for. I'm actually going to wait and
Okay.
Heather look
Or
that
just
up
let
before
us
I say
know.
the wrong month.
That's okay.
So
Comments, workshop?
yes, and I'm happy to discuss this. If you guys have any questions.
You got a workshop.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a comment. First would like to say I think this is great, Kevin, for you all to be going through and looking at inconsistencies and then updating them. My question, if we were to go down this path in terms of making the adjustment for those who are already at max capacity with their square footage, would their application for a variance to the BZO also trigger them to go back in front of other departments in terms of like going back to stormwater or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they would still, since all of those are in the historic district, any additions or any modifications, depending on what they're going to have to do, would require a certificate of appropriateness in front of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Or any site. I wonder if it was 1,600 square feet and they wanted to add 400, no matter what.
No matter what, yes, ma'am.
It still has to.
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I've got some. Kevin, would you go back to the list and the acreage, the lot size is what I'm looking at on here, as we can tell, and I'm not sure if it's something that we should talk about as far as the requiring the lot size, or do we just go by our normal setbacks that are already in place? But I think we definitely need to just change this and not put these folks who want to add a bathroom or something on, because for the most part, you're looking at, like you said, most of them are non-conforming already. But these lots are pretty big as well. You're looking at 2,300 square foot house on an acre and a half is pretty, I wish the whole town was like that. But, so I don't think that I think we should just change it to allow them, whether they want to build a 4,000 square foot on one level or a 4,000 square foot on two levels. To me, it makes no difference. It's a lot of these people who own those properties are getting older, like the rest of us, if we want to admit it, and they don't want two-story houses. And I totally understand that. I have one. So instead of making them go through all these hoops every time they want to do something, that we're going to allow them to do it anyway. So I would say just amend it to make it allowable.
Comments on this side? Fred?
How many have we, well, question is, we probably haven't done that, but will they have setback issues if we allow larger footprint?
I can't fully answer that. What I can say is that, and let me go to, you can see right here that we do have setback requirements, which are for the rear and the sides are 20 feet. So however they decide to expand, they would still have to meet those setback requirements, yes. Now, if a not to go too in-depth, but if a structure is currently over those setback requirements, then we would have to potentially address that to where they are not making any expansions more non-conforming. So that's on a case-by-case basis.
Right. That would be my only concern, as long as, because then we probably have to change the, because there's something called, we're doing on Buck Island Road right now, we're changing it to some.
The build to,
Yeah.
there's a build to zone.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Other than that, I think we should allow the expansion if it meets the guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah, I concur. When we updated the UDO recently to limit the footprint, that was primarily, we were focused on the historic district per se, the scale. And this is its own unique riverfront district, which actually falls, and it's residential. So it falls outside the scale of what we were actually trying to correct and adjust last time.
Yes, sir.
So with that being said, and all the setbacks and everything that are already in place, I'm fine with it.
Very good. Yes, ma'am.
Right,
Yeah.
just let everyone else
Yeah.
talk. Ditto. I do agree with Dan. When we looked at the footprint, we were absolutely looking more toward the commercial, and I even learned from this. I do see outside of this district, whether it's acreage, whether it's the same rule, I think we've got to stay focused on that. Maybe in your UDO update that we should look, because we have a lot of non-conforming throughout our historic district of houses built before 2011. So just not, so we're knee-jerking all the time. Let's be proactive and look at the whole area and see if we can't do a similar study, take away the commercial. I don't know how you're going to do that. So that would be my suggestion soon down the road. But I think you heard a pretty consistent agreement on your presentation.
Okay, very good. So next steps, what we'll do is, since this is in the historic district, we're going to go to Historic Preservation Commission, let them know what's moving forward. It will go to Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then ultimately back to you with 2 readings.
Thank you for
Okay.
getting us on a workshop.
All right.
And then I heard Stephen mention something about the workshop in November. So would your UD edits go through a workshop, or would you just bring them to us? Wouldn't you bring them to us?
Right now, they're listed on the pipeline that's coming in November for a workshop like this to discuss what would be coming in case there are any changes, guidance, or anything before we finalize them and bring to council.
Okay, so November, kind of annually every year, it sounds like that's kind of the time frame.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
So you're basically saying it would be January at earliest before it would take effect?
Well, that'd be just a workshop.
With this one right now, it would go, correct me if I'm wrong, would be taking it to the planning commission next month in August. and
August.
council in September and October.
Yes.
And this is an ordinance, so we could do pending doctrine at our first reading if it can help with some of your applications.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
good.
Great.
Are
Thank you
you
very
up
much.
for Heather, or is Heather up? Next is a formal item, we have 6. The first is the ordinance to amend the Town of Bluffton redevelopment plan as it relates to our TIF district, first reading. Heather. And we have Franny. Good evening, Franny.
Yes, thank you. This is actually the one of 2 related items. So I'm going to present the words part of the TIF ordinance changes and then turn it over to Franny Heiser for the second, for more the numbers part of the presentation. So they do go hand in hand, but it is 2 separate items, 2 separate ordinances, 2 separate motions. So what we have here tonight is, as part of the budget that you all approved, one of the budget funding sources was for the new Riverside Barn project. And so as part of that, to facilitate the construction, sorry, the screen was moving on me, that's fine. As part of that project, we wanted to, and to facilitate that project, to extend the TIF and use the TIF funding sources to complete that. As part of that, the first item that needs to be resolved is to amend the redevelopment plan as it relates to the TIF. So one, add that project, the new Riverside Barn project, as an eligible project, as well as extend the boundaries. So that's really exactly what this first item addresses. As part of that, as we always do when we go through that ordinance and that redevelopment plan, found that there were some other projects and things that we went ahead and amended at that same time. So in the staff report, the first, the 6 items that you'll see there is primarily what it is doing. It's the extension of that TIF district and that redevelopment plan for another 10 years. Removing reference to Beaufort County School District, their, as far as their participation or lack of. The expansion of that project list, like I just talked about. Like I said, as we went back to that, make sure that new Riverside Barn Park was eligible. The recalculation of the total amount, so went to our CIP data sheets and the cost and made sure that everything was reconciled and as it needs to be. Again, adding that piece of property in to the overall area. And that's really what that entails. So again, this is that first part. The next part, separate ordinance with the numbers. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or I can pull up the recommended motion.
So do we make the motion before we find out what item 2 does? You would suggest making the motion on this?
So this one actually defines the TIF district and the life of the TIF. The next one that you would take is going to actually be the financing against what you're going to approve here. So you would need to have the TIF district in place before you can finance the bond against it.
Gotcha. I was just asking, should we do the motions after the second presentation, or do you want to do it with each?
I'd recommend doing with each. Do you agree?
I would agree. Just follow the
Any
process.
questions from council on this? Okay, I don't have you have a motion, but I can do it from the article. Is there a motion to amend the Town of Bluffton redevelopment plan as it relates to the tax increment financing district? This is a first reading.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Does that cover it? Richardson, does that motion cover it?
Yes, ma'am.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Got it. Beat you to it. So part 2 of this is authorizing the issuance and sale of not to exceed $10 million tax increment bond series 2020 or such other appropriate designation. Franny is our bond counsel with Burr Foreman, and thank you for coming down this way. And we'll give it to you.
Thank y'all for letting me join y'all tonight. It's always a pleasure to be here. Such a beautiful chamber. I always say this is one of the nicest places to go to a city or town council meeting. So you've amended your TIF to bring it up to date and to include the new project. And so the next step is to authorize the financing for that new project, and that'd be in the form of a not to exceed $10 million tax increment financing bond. At this time, we are anticipating that bond will be bid out and will be purchased by local bank. That is the current plan, although your financial advisor, Brian Nurick, would work closely with us to see what the best outcome is going to be. Y'all will, to the extent that you issue only $10 million this year, and I think that's the case. You haven't issued any other debt. This debt will be what we call bank qualified. That is a special category of debt established by the IRS that makes the purchase of that debt a little more favorable to banks. They get a little more tax benefit if they're purchasing debt that is bank qualified. So I think that difference in potential interest rates is why we're looking at a bank placement. It will be bid out, though, so it'll be competitively bid. We won't just pick a bank to pick a bank to place the debt with. This debt will not count against your 8% constitutional debt limit because it is to be repaid only from the revenues from the TIF district. This is a long-standing TIF. It is a very, very well-performing TIF district, so there should be no credit concerns in terms of advancing an additional $10 million of TIF debt. I'd be glad to answer any questions y'all have.
Questions?
I do. And I may have let the horse get out the barn and should have put my question prior, but I'm going to ask it in a different way.
We will answer it.
All right, so this bond is, and it's listed right here, it's primarily for the New Riverside Park.
Correct.
Okay? And it's $10 million. And so the total TIF district was projected to be at 70 million something dollars. So somewhere down the road, we would come back and maybe issue another bond and another bond as needed, is what I'm hearing here?
Either that or pay as you go. The town of Bluffton has been historically reticent to issue debt. Y'all do a lot of pay as you go. Breaks my heart, but I understand why you do it. It's great for the town and great for your taxpayers. So you have the flexibility under the amended TIF plan to have additional time and to have additional amounts available that, working with your administration, you would either use the revenue as it's available for pay-as-you-go, or there certainly is a potential for future debt.
And the reason for my question is, in the prior presentation, it breaks down various reasons that what the TIF will fund. You had them listed, I don't have it in front of me, but it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gave examples. I don't know that it was specific to everything, but the reason for my question, and this is really as much for council to consider, but when you get to the historic preservation portions of what we're trying to do in the community here, we have some funding that we've just allocated recently, but it's minuscule in some ways, because preservation is expensive. And so I didn't know whether this could be a potential opportunity to add that item into the list of items that we would consider, not today, not on this one, but somewhere in the scale of things that we were talking about for the overall TIF district.
Certainly, you have flexibility under the TIF statute to make additional modifications and to include additional projects. All of the TIF projects really are intended to benefit the community as a whole and to increase the tax base. And I'd be pretty confident that what you're talking about would fit within the definition of an appropriate TIF project. As you say, that's really a policy question for the council and the administration, but certainly the flexibility is there from a legal standpoint to include historic preservation type projects. And the one requirement is that TIF projects must be publicly owned, so you cannot improve private property, but the town doesn't necessarily have to be the public entity owning the project, but that one requirement of the TIF statute is that the TIF projects be publicly owned.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is just a potential source of revenue to do things in the future.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Question?
Franny, help me with this, please. You said it's a well-performing district.
Correct.
Elaborate on that for me, please.
I actually was here at the beginning, as were y'all. In 2004, your then Mayor Johnston had a vision that a TIF district, particularly for a town such as Bluffton, needed to be able to be large enough to include areas that were going to need investment and areas that were going to have increases in assessed value. And that's pretty much a typical combination in a TIF district. At his urging, we worked with the legislature and we made there were a couple of amendments made to the then statewide TIF statute. Originally, there was a limit of the TIF area could only be 5% of the property of the territory of a municipality. And TIF districts were largely focused on the rehabilitation of blighted areas such as old warehouse districts in Columbia, the Vista, in Charleston, close to the water. So the amendments took away the 5% limitation, which was important to Bluffton because y'all had just recently annexed Palmetto Bluff. And of course, overnight, y'all became one of the largest cities and municipalities in the state with the addition of the Palmetto Bluff area. Also, the idea of needing redevelopment for areas that had never been developed And so the statute now includes the concept of an agricultural area that is in need of public investment because of the lack of, the absence of infrastructure, water and sewer, planning, et cetera. So those changes were made in 2004. And so your TIF district dates back to 2005. And very large part of the Palmetto Bluff was included in the TIF district. And as it turned out, neither the county nor the school district agreed to participate. So the town of Bluffton controls the TIF district and the revenue from the TIF district. So there's enough revenue comes from the TIF district that a good bit of it goes to your general fund because your general fund needs it. But the property values in the TIF district have increased dramatically over these last 15, 17 years. It's important that you're amending your TIF and not creating a new TIF because you get to go back to the original assessed value. And so that's why I say that it is a very well-performing TIF, that there is a lot of revenue has been generated that has both supported the town's general fund and your operations, but also a number of very important TIF projects, including, I think, some roadways and other things that y'all have done through either debt or through pay-as-you-go.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anything over here?
Yeah, I just got one,
Questions?
just
Yeah.
clarification for any, so basically if we added the historic district or, a list of projects or whatever onto this bond now, it's not too late to do that on this one?
It's not too late to do this, but it certainly is not too late to do it a year from now or 6 months from now. I think that the plan is to try to have this debt approved and issued this calendar year because the $10 million bank qualified limit is a calendar year limit. And so if you borrowed even a $500,000, you would be over the 10 million limit. So the best planning says let's borrow the 10 million this year, and then y'all would have time if you want to work through additional projects or additional borrowing.
Well, what I'm leading to here, what I'm trying to figure out, if we didn't need the whole 10 million for the one project, the main project that we listed there, right away, could we use 2 million of it or 3 million here, in Old Town or Historic District and, let it all wait or pay as we go to finish that project?
You could add you could add additional projects. Y'all control how the bond proceeds are expended, so you would have that flexibility. If you have in mind using part of the 10 million for other projects, we probably should include them in this document, even if we wait a month and you give this final reading in September, so whatever time is needed to finalize those plans.
Yeah,
So you've got flexibility now, and you would have flexibility in the future.
So just to go back and touch on that question, looking at the map, one of the things that we did with this amendment was to add in all of our parks. While I'm looking at the map, it does not look like we included our buildings that we own in the historic district. So we didn't add Squire Pope, we didn't add Sarah Riley Hooks. We could go back in and make that change between now and second reading if you feel that doesn't trigger anything.
If it's the will of council, that's just the way I'm thinking it would be better to include it than.
If it's adding in two properties.
Well, if we make the motion, what is the purpose of first reading if we can't make edits before second reading? I would think if we're at second reading and added it, it would be more material, and I'm also happy to come back in 6 months. I like his question, but I don't want to mess up this and
No, and
I
I'm
don't
not trying to
see,
mess it
we
up
need to
either.
focus on something to get finished, which if we can
Right,
put all
right.
this
I
in
mean,
New Riverside, what happens if it was only 8 million? Couldn't we come back as we get closer to knowing what it is and add a project?
And we can always spend it on, we use our additional TIF revenue to go towards CIP projects now. So we generate more revenue than our debt payment is, and we normally put those towards projects that are within the TIF area, and that's been mostly parks. So we could continue to do other improvements that we have in our CIP outside. Right now, like I said, it doesn't include our 2 historical properties. We could, if council, and Rich, and you correct me as I say this, if council wanted to go ahead and do first reading and make a motion to include, to add our 2 historic districts into it, could they do that, or how would that work?
And besides, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the first, I'm very limited familiarity with TIF districts and TIF bonds, but the first ordinance that y'all already approved is the one that defines the TIF district. So what I'd like to look into before now in second reading, and in consultation with y'all's bond counsel, is to see whether there are any potential problems with amending that ordinance to incorporate those 2 or 3 properties that are within the historic district and add those as part of second reading.
I thought Stephen just said that we included the parks and.
We included the park, but we didn't include our historic properties.
They did not do.
It includes Squire Pope and Sarah Riley Hooks. Okay. I was looking at the map of the properties, those 2, we included all of our park properties, but we didn't include those 2 historic properties specifically, so we, especially Sarah Riley Hooks being not specifically identified, we can figure out whether we can do that between first and second. If not, again, we can always come back and amend our TIF.
I'm not trying to create something that doesn't exist, but I was just saying if we go ahead and get it listed on there now and we have an opportunity to do something, we won't have to wait for another year or 2 to find the money to do it. We can.
I would say just our anticipated expenditures for the new Riverside Park, I don't think there's going to be much left over to put towards a bunch of other projects.
Those questions out.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it in this motion.
And we'll absolutely have an answer for y'all well in advance of next month's meeting.
Absolutely, and I don't see any problem making changes between first and second reading. Your rules, as I'm aware, don't prevent that, preclude that, and like you say, that is what second reading is for. And if y'all give direction to the administration, then in your next agenda package, you might have a recommendation so that your public would understand that it is likely that there would be an amendment at second reading.
Ms. Fraser, anything? Couple of things, because we have a lot of new people, again, moving here, but then we're starting to see more new people come to council, and then we're streamlined. With Fred's question, I was reading that packet. The assessed value that we're working on is $2,845,000. 2022 assessed value is $183,382,000. So I'm guessing why you're saying, oh my gosh, you're performing. And we have done pathways, drainage improvements, roadway improvements, park development, new facilities and infrastructure, planning initiatives, and land acquisition. So going back to growth, which is, no one can stop growth. What can we do to curb it, and what can we do to show our residents we are working very hard to accommodate growth? I think we're showing it. And I hope people will read this item because it's a great document. And it really does give the history of where we started and what's working and all the projects and all the communities. It's somewhat similar to our annual financial report. I mean, it's a really great snapshot. So please, I urge everyone who has questions on that to look at that item on our agenda. It should give you some pride that this town is financially on a good track, and we're a AA+ bond.
Absolutely.
Right? And the 8%, I did have a question. So you said this doesn't affect our 8%. Does the remaining 60, would that affect 8%? Say we did another 10 million bond.
No, TIF, tax increment financing debt is not general obligation debt.
Okay.
Your full faith and credit taxing power is not pledged to repay this debt. It's only the TIF revenue that is pledged.
So I have a follow-up, just a thought, and then I've talked to Stephen about it. When do you suggest we go back to get a better rating, bond rating?
I don't think you'll get a better bond rating, honestly. I mean,
what is the next one? A plus?
AAA. The state's AAA.
We've done some research and comparing ourselves to the other AAA rated in the state. I think there's 3 others or 4. And it's like Hilton Head, Mount Pleasant, Greenville, I think maybe Columbia. I think it's just Greenville or Mount Pleasant. There's like 3 or 4. We've kind of compared our stuff to them, and we're probably getting close. There's some things that are ratios that are going to, as the town continues to grow, we'll get closer. So we're kind of monitoring that and checking to see if over the next year or 2, whether it would be beneficial to do that.
And then finally, I do think this could be a time at strategic plan, which now we moved it to November, that maybe if you could come, we discuss this. Discuss the TIF and what else can we do and what else can we add just a couple months down the road, and you could give us an update on if this has
And
been
the financial advisor that's working with us and with Chris would be happy to come and make a presentation about credit ratings and why y'all's is so good, and y'all have excellent credit rating.
So I don't know if y'all think that's something, but let's put it on the notes and.
Credit is that good. Put a car in there for me.
Just a suggestion, not a request.
So have we decided to add those names or leave those names out for now? Because one of the reasons I brought up the question that I did was to look at it as another funding mechanism for other things, for example, the preservation we just talked about. But then if you do that, then it frees up money somewhere else that we've already started trying to finance and obligate, which staff would have to work through to figure out.
So adding, as it was pointed out, you've already approved first reading of the ordinance where it would need to be added.
Right.
What we'll do is we'll look between now and next month to add it in for second reading and make sure legally they all feel comfortable adding it in legally. And if so, we'll add those historic properties in there for second reading, and that will be what you can vote on next month.
So there will be changes between first and second.
Yeah, y'all got me second guessing myself, but I want to explain my reasoning. What happens is, we got the $10 million sitting there, and we're paying interest on it, and it takes 6 years to do a project. So you're paying interest on something for 6 years instead of utilizing it, which is the whole idea of doing this, so that we can get these projects done. We're experiencing it right now with some other projects where the money's sitting in the bank. We're paying, just last year, a pretty large amount of interest, waiting on the engineering and designs and stuff to get the project done. So that's why I wanted to have alternatives as far as using the money for other things if the opportunity came up, and we would end up saving money because we would get the projects done so much quicker as the price of everything's going up. Thank you.
Understood. Okay, so this is first reading. We'll get more information before second. Any other questions of Franny? Thank you so
Thank y'all
much
very much.
for
Always great.
understanding. Is there a motion to authorize, on an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of a not to exceed $10 million tax increment bond series 2022 or such other appropriate series designations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank y'all very much.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much, Randy. Next, we have item 3 is consideration of approval of an amendment to the master plan for Headwaters at Bluffton, consisting of 59.2 acres of land located at Hampton Parkway and 278 in zone Buckwalter planned unit development. Thank you.
As you stated, this is for a master plan amendment referred to as Headwaters at Bluffton. Just to give you some background, or excuse me, not background, but project location. So the subject property is located here along 49 Island Road and Hampton Parkway. This is an existing master plan that was previously approved for a Harris Teeter shopping center. Never moved forward with the shopping center. If you guys will also know that up in the top corner was the existing Hampton Lakes sales office, which the town used for 16 months while we were renovating and constructing this building. So we're very familiar with that area as well. Again, just from a context standpoint, this is the project location. The applicant is proposing the construction of a mixed-use development of 270 multifamily units, phasing, and also includes several outparcels that would be located along the realigned Hampton Parkway, approximately 59 acres. And I put this in here, part of the Fifth Amendment to the Development Agreement and Concept Plan for Buckwalter Tract included that the Hampton Parkway was required to be realigned and new construction. So I'll go into a little bit more information, but just kind of put that out there. This was reviewed by the Development Review Committee in December, and then just most recently in May, this went in front of the Planning Commission. So Planning Commission, they did recommend to approve with a few of the conditions. So I'll just go through them just really quickly. It's just that they wanted to update the plan to upgrade multifamily development access to the gravel road to a full access and fully construct the new alignment of the Hampton Parkway. Initially, the applicant was just wanting to provide a emergency access point on the southern end of the development and then connect in to the current Hampton Parkway. They also asked to update the plan to include a northern, central, and southern sidewalk connections to the multifamily development in the future parkway. This one was for a second dumpster location to serve the needs of the residents in the multifamily. To update the traffic impact analysis shall be provided prior to submitting for phases 2 and 3, and then to add a fence along the buffer of the southern portion of the development. So just some background information. This is the Buckwalter concept plan, and I've highlighted here just so you can see the area in red. That is the Headwaters development. Island West is to the east. You have property to the west that is owned by Beaufort County for a park system. And then you can see the smaller line to the east, the blue line, is the current alignment of the Hampton Parkway, and then the new alignment or future alignment of Hampton Parkway, which has the full access to the traffic light. This is the existing master plan. This is the Harris Teeter with various outparcels of restaurants, offices, more retail components, not necessarily residential. And this is the proposed master plan. So I've aligned it to make it a little bit larger, but you can see that US 278 40 Island Road is to the right. So the north arrow, you can see the north arrow is pointing to the side. So just from a context to give you. And then the Hampton Parkway, which is on the top portion of this image, does run north-south. So you can see the alignment of the future Hampton Parkway, the multifamily complex. It should be noted, and it was communicated very early on in this plan, and that there were quite a few significant trees on this property. And staff worked very hard with the applicant before they submitted this plan to make sure that we went through and did an analysis of those trees, of what trees, while on paper they might look really big, some of them, they weren't that necessarily the best of trees. But we went through and made sure that, some of those darker, larger green bubbles are these significant trees that we wanted to make sure that they were kept incorporated into the design. So the initial design did not look like this, and the applicant was able to work around a lot of these trees and be able to save them. So I just want to make sure, that we worked very hard to save a lot of those significant trees that are on that site. So as you can see, the Hampton Parkway is running, unfortunately, I don't have this up here. There it is. Let's see if this is going to work. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's the current traffic light is located right here. This is the existing sales office that we use. So the applicant would be using an entrance located here. This is all, and then this is the that Toyota entrance that we're referring to, and then their initial entrance or their secondary entrance was located back here. So part of the Planning Commission was to make sure that this roadway was constructed with this phase, the phase of the apartment complex. So this might make it a little bit easier. So phase 1 is the apartment complex located here. Phase 2 is commercial, and then a third phase of commercial right here. I've highlighted in blue just that alignment. You can see the alignment of the parkway. And then what would have to happen is from the existing parkway, it would be realigned to make a fluid movement through and to the traffic light. And then what we would do is we would create a T-junction here with that existing portion of the parkway. So you'd still have access to that existing portion of parkway, but the through movement is, and down to the south here is Buckwalter, or excuse me, Bluffton Parkway. So that would give you that north-south connection from traffic light to traffic light. There are various review criteria that are used in the review. I won't go through each and every one of these. I did highlight two of them that during their initial submittal, they were not consistent with. However, and the applicant is here and can speak on this, they are willing to construct the entire parkway with that phase of the multifamily development. So one of those conditions, and I'll have it up here in a second, by meeting that condition, these two criteria they are now meeting those criteria. So your actions this evening are to approve the application as submitted, approve it with conditions, or to deny the request. And again, from a review process, you can see that this went in front of Planning Commission with public hearing and recommendation, and is in front of you with a majority vote this evening, 1 vote. I'm happy to answer any questions. And then the applicant, Nathan Long with Thomas & Hutton, is here and can speak if there's any additional questions.
I have a question. I saw the conditions that were suggested for their amendment update. Have those items already been completed, or is that necessary before they get final approval, like the traffic study?
So, and you can see what here, if you so choose to move forward with this, with an approval with conditions, I wrote the conditions in such a way that at time of that development plan, they would move forward. So, referred to the capacity study for the dumpster. At that development plan, they would be working on that. And actually, in between getting the packets out to town council, the applicant did provide a study. So they've actually already done it. So we'll make sure that that is incorporated into that development plan. So at the time of development plan, we'll look to update. If there's any issues with that TIA, we'll make sure that it's updated to make those improvements. And then also, the fence was discussed. There was an applicant, or excuse me, a resident that had concern about that. Obviously, as that commercial portion of it comes online here, that's when we would be requiring at development plan that they would install that fence. Because right now, this entire area south of the parkway is not being developed. So there's no point of putting a fence in the middle of nowhere at this time. But as development would happen and that commercial development, that a fence would then be installed. And then the parkway. So the question came up about making sure that the size of that parkway. Staff's interpretation, and it always been, is that it's a two-lane parkway, and that they would construct it to meet that. There's a small area here where it widens out for the travel lanes at the intersection, but then you can see where it does taper off into that two-lane design.
And if possible, Kevin, because I don't see it in our packet. I know you said they have submitted it. I would like to know what was the determination with the traffic study that was conducted?
So the initial concern with the traffic study is what impacts are going to happen on, let me get to the phasing map here. So with this phasing map, what would be necessary as each one of these commercial were coming online? Since they are constructing the entire road at the very beginning, it's kind of a moot point in the sense of they don't necessarily need to worry about updating that portion of it, because the traffic study was based on every time you had that next phase, you needed to provide some more information. But as they're constructing the entire thing at one point, they don't need to do that now.
Thank you.
Is there anything right now?
Yeah, on that same note, the only thing that I see that concerns me a little bit is the amount of traffic coming out of there for the Island West folks when they're coming out of there, because, you know, right now you get a break when it stops, traffic stops on 278. And with the added traffic coming out of there, it's gonna, like everywhere else. I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Well, yes, Mayor. One of the things that I think staff took the initiative to be proactive was, from my understanding of conversation today, we have roads sometimes that don't get built in a orderly fashion, like Washington Square. And so they were a little more aggressive, and they wanted to make sure that didn't happen here. So they insisted that the road be built. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
So that was a very wise decision on town staff's behalf. But I wanted to ask the one question, which is minor, but regarding the fence. What kind of fence? What is it? What will it look like? Will it meet the needs of the people that asked about the fence?
So obviously, no fence has been designed at this point. You know, we could include in your condition, you know, like a size, an opaqueness, meaning that it could be a wooden fence that's 6 feet tall. But you also have to remember, and let me go to the plan here. Excuse me. So there is a 50-foot buffer that runs along the rear of this development. So since this is on the edge of the Buckwalter PUD, there is a required 50-foot buffer. So any fence that would be installed so you have the property line, then you have a 50-foot buffer, and then you would have the fence.
What side would the fence be on?
Well, the fence would be between the commercial development and the 50-foot buffer, and then the residence. So what you're doing is you're putting the vegetation for the residents first, and then the fence, so that way they get the benefit of all the vegetation plus the fence. Or the other option, you know, I think what you're referring to is, if you were to put a fence on the property line, that defeats the purpose of that 50-foot buffer. You want that vegetation first, then the fence, and then development.
I'm fine with that. I think that's good. I just, again, I wanted to be sure that, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So what one kind of fence might look like versus somebody else's, it might be just staff takes the initiative to put something in there, you know, what you perceive as a decent fence to solve the problem that came up earlier.
Yeah, you know, realistically, you're looking at anywhere between a 6 and 8 foot fence that has more of a earth tone, you know.
Privacy, though.
Yes, privacy, 100% privacy. Yeah, not chain link.
Okay.
Kevin, I'm still not pleased with just saying a traffic study is going to be done for this project. I think the traffic study should be done for a project that's in the vicinity of this project, the next door community, and all should be, and I think that's some council work or workshop sometime, but we can't just do a traffic study now just for one project. It's not working. It's really not working. If we just do it for one project, everything will get approved. But then we're still not concerned about what's going on north and south, east and west.
So I understand. What we can do is we can have them at development plan look to update the plan that they have to include, it's almost like an assessment of the amount of development that's happening across the street, just to see if that's going to cause any impact on their development as well as the parkway construction. Obviously, with 278, the size that it is, I don't foresee any future additions of travel lanes. You know, they've already provided a left turn movement into the Pepper Hall development. There's an existing left turn lane into the parkway. There's a right turn lane already into this development, and they do not have direct access onto 278. So as you can see, all of their access is taken from the Hampton Parkway and then funnels into 278. And just as a reminder that all the development plans do go back in front of the Planning Commission. So, they will be reviewing this from the land development side, as well as it is in the Highway Corridor Overlay District. So from an architectural landscaping lighting standpoint, it will be reviewed by them.
A couple ending, and maybe it might start. I've got a couple questions. First, I hope we're not using Headwaters, that it's going to be confused with the Headwaters in a community. Like Palmetto Bluff has Headwaters. And when I first read this, I went right to Palmetto Bluff. So we're using similar names in similar communities. So I just hate for an ambulance to be called to go to Headwaters and they end up going to Palmetto Bluff Headwaters. So I don't know if we've ever thought through that. I hope no names. There are no street names after that. It's just more of a FYI.
Okay.
The tree count, the ordinance we passed about the buffer and not counting the trees in the buffer, is this part of that new ordinance resolution, whatever we did? It counts toward this? Okay.
Yes.
I just a couple things I heard residents say. I like your realignment of the parkway. Now do we have Hampton Parkway West and Hampton Parkway East? Like, what happens with the old Hampton Parkway, or is it still called Hampton Parkway? And it is still going to stay there, and it's always going to be a right in, right out.
The road will stay there, and then we'll have to, at this moment, I'm not sure, but we'd have to look to probably rename it, or maybe it's an extension or something like that. We'll figure out.
It'd come back to council to make a determination how we want to address that road, since we own it, whether we could close it off and just make it an access for the county should they ever develop their park. We could look at renaming it. We do a bunch of different, we have different options to
The reason I ask that, because we own that, but we won't own Hampton Parkway in this development.
Yes,
So
we
we
will.
have the ability to
We
listen.
will own this.
We will own it.
We will own this,
So we'll
yes,
own
ma'am.
all of Hampton Parkway.
Wait a minute.
Yes, that's part of the fifth agreement, yes. The fifth agreement,
They build it,
they construct it, and we inspect it, and then
And we maintain it.
and we will assume ownership. Yes, that was part of the Fifth Amendment to the Buckwalter PUD.
It becomes the new Hampton Park.
Yes,
5 amendments ago.
yes.
So the reason I asked, we have the ability to come back to us, boots on the ground. We can hear our residents, watch it, monitor it, not have to worry to go through the state or the county. We can put speed bumps on it if we want to. We have total control on watching and figuring out stop signs, anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I do worry about that.
I understand.
That
And
original, and I do worry about Island West, which are very good neighbors to our town. That light was put there to alleviate accidents off of 278 of their original entrance, and that's used a lot, I would say 90% of the time to get to that red light. So that is going to be some traffic that maybe you need to just double check on and watch and count and see how many people use that every
Correct.
day. Because
Yes,
I know
and
I use it and I don't
so
live
at time of development plan, we'll make sure that obviously this intersection, this movement right here is addressed. We'll also look to Beaufort County to assist with that as well.
Good. Then, so the traffic, the connector to Hampton Parkway, the privacy fence. Does the privacy fence, and I heard a comment, and why not? It's not that much more. You say southern, but can it also go up to the eastern as commercial development takes place? Just to buffer the golf course from that 50-foot buffer, can it go south and up to where the golf course is on? I think we just had it south, but is it?
Yes,
is it L-shaped?
the intent was for the residents on this portion here, and if you give me a second here, I'm going to go back to the aerial so you can see that we had residents from an approximate standpoint located here. This is the driving range portion here. So, with that 50, there's the 50-foot buffer. And what we could do is look to provide either fence or additional landscaping to make sure that it's increased that opaqueness. So that way, that'll help. I'm always a proponent of natural, vegetative buffer. So I think that with the driving range at that location, we could look to add to that buffer to make sure that it's opaque.
You don't want to air a ball hitting a car either, like on the other side.
Well,
You want to protect it. The frustration I always have when we abut county property, when they developed Island West, and the owners there could be the 10th homeowners as long as that's been there, but they abutted right up to their property line. And it's frustrating because I wish they would have that buffer as well. So I do understand what you told Dan, looking down. The trees in the buffer are not going to be, not in any kind of tree count. They got to stay there.
Right.
Then you get to the town property, and that's where the fence is going, and then commercial. That's the way I understood you tell. Or the other way, commercial property, fence, 50-foot buffer.
Right.
Island West.
Right.
Is how I understood you to
Yes.
answer that question. So Island West will never see the fence, but they will keep that 50-foot buffer, and if it grows wild or whatever.
Yes,
It just
that's the
gets
intent.
thick.
Yep.
Got it. One last thing, and I just know we did it with Village of Verdeer, and I know we had a little whoop with another project. The commercial, as they come forward, they're going to plan it, but we're not going to see designations of use. I mean, I know we didn't when we did Village of Verdeer, and it was kind of commercial A, B, C. I've just noticed over the last year or so, uses change with times, and things can be invented 5 years from now that may not have a use. Are we going to keep it very generic, but make sure they have the parking for whatever commercial fits?
Yes, ma'am. So this is under that general commercial designation.
You're not going to say daycare center?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No,
good.
and that'll all be reviewed because it's unprogrammed at this point. So I don't think that they have anything ready for it. But it
Just
will
trying
be
to
reviewed.
remember,
Yep.
learn from our past. I think that's all I had. Okay. Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. That's the full motion. You want us to include the 5 items, which is fine. I guess I'll
Ma'am,
read it.
that's, yes, and I mean, it's on the board. I don't know if you want to read it verbatim, but it is there and
I would really take Fred's comments to heart, if not for this one, for others. I know in the past, when we looked at plans, we actually had around it like 500 feet or something. What else is there? And I hope Planning Commission, when they first see it, realizes what else is going on.
Yeah.
And I think it would be wise to really take that to heart. How, not just this, but how does Graves property, how does the traffic at Island West affect this? Because it's, yes, it's by right and it's ready to go, but just to make sure everybody is happy.
I agree, and I made a note about that. We'll look at that. Usually when the traffic studies are done, they have to go to certain points at certain intersections. We can look and see what we outline and whether that needs to be readdressed.
Mayor, may I ask one more question?
Now.
Kevin, no, I was given a chance to make his
Okay.
notes. Can you go back to the drawing for a minute, please?
That was Larry.
Go to the aerial, the one that was the aerial. That, right there. So to the left, where the road, the parkway is now. Yes, sir. Right, stop right there. So that land, come up a little bit, that land right in there, is that developable?
that is owned by Beaufort County.
Shouldn't
That-
be. It's too close to the river.
I think my understanding for their long-term plan is that's designated as future parkland.
Yes.
All right, and then the piece just below the transmission line.
Beaufort County,
Okay.
And they own everything to the left,
yes.
even
The reason I asked the
Except for the
question
road, right?
is,
except for the road, we own the road.
before we make any decisions on the road, we would need to sit down and talk with them to see how this plays into their scheme. Hopefully some more green space, but we would need to do that before we would ever come to a conclusion. So, okay, thank you.
All right.
Seems like to me that second road being there would just alleviate some of the traffic from going on the other road. I mean, if there's a right turn off of 278,
Yep.
someone who is going to another development or to Bluffton Parkway or Hampton Lakes or wherever they were going,
They could just use that.
Yeah, to me, I would say leave it.
But the good thing is we can all look at it and we don't have to worry about other entities telling us we can't do it.
Right.
That's the bright light at this, in this world. Okay, anything else? Is there a motion to approve the request to amendment to the master plan for Headwaters at Bluffton, consisting of 59.2 acres of land located at Hampton Parkway and Highway 278 in zone Buckwalter plan unit development with the following conditions? Prior to approval of the master plan documents, the applicant will update the master plan and narrative to reflect a paved full access and to fully construct the new alignment of Hampton Parkway to the standards of the Beaufort County Zoning and Development Standards Ordinance 93, and to meet the obligations of the Fifth Amendment to the Buckwater Development Agreement. Prior to approval of the master plan documents, update the master plan and narrative to show a northern, central, and southern sidewalk connection from the multifamily development for newly constructed Hampton Parkway. At time of preliminary development plan submittal, provide a capacity study to determine if a second dumpster location to serve the needs of the residents located in the southern half of the multifamily development if necessary. At time of preliminary development plan submittal, provide an updated traffic impact analysis to incorporate current development across Highway 278 to determine if any additional improvements to the intersection are necessary. If additional improvements are warranted, they will be included in the development plan process. Per the recommendation of the Planning Commission, at time of preliminary development plan submittal for phases 2 and 3, a fence will be incorporated into the design of the buffer along the southern portion of the first future commercial development.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? A lot of times for public to be part of this and look at it too, right? During development plan and all
absolutely.
of that. Great. Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
very
ma'am.
much, Kevin. Really thorough. Consideration of a resolution requesting South Carolina Department of Transportation to reduce speed limits of state-owned roads within the historic district and surrounding area. Kim, are we betting this will happen?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to happen.
Good.
We're going to make this happen. Probably should have started at the beginning though. So I am the only thing between you and the end of this council meeting, and I appreciate that fact.
Oh, you are.
I am. You got me to the end, to the bitter end at this point. As we're talking about traffic with Kevin and this master plan amendment, of course, one of the things that we've heard loudly and clearly from our citizens, and you as council have heard it as well, is multiple requests for improved pedestrian and pathway safety, specifically within the historic district. We've had these requests. As we discussed it during strategic planning earlier this year, y'all told us that we wanted to look a little bit more comprehensively at this issue and broaden the scope of pedestrian pathway safety beyond the historic district. And so that has become an initiative for us as the pathway and pedestrian safety improvements. There's a lot of exposition up here on these slides for background and mostly for the public's benefit so they can read through this. I'm not going to read all of this to you. But what we are using as a framework, obviously, are the International Transportation Engineers guidelines on traffic calming, as well as DOT's traffic calming guidelines. Because we don't own all of our streets, as we just discussed the pros and benefits of that with Hampton Parkway. We're seeing that within the historic district as well. So when we talk about traffic calming, what does that look like? No matter what we decide to do, we must do it in conjunction with DOT. One of the potential options we have for traffic calming is to partner with DOT. And I thought this was a particularly good quote to bring it out, because DOT does say a partnership between the various entities such as DOT and the local government that are affected should be established to address these various components, and such a partnership will be beneficial to the traffic calming process, which is part of the reason why I'm in front of you today, is to ask for a resolution to formalize this partnership with DOT so that we can start moving forward on coordinating these efforts. We also have our own traffic calming policy that discusses speed limits in line with our Muni Code section, speed limit variation and sign notice. And so any particular traffic calming that would involve speed limit reductions would have to be in accordance with our own municipal ordinances, as well as, again, that state statute. And this is where it starts to get sticky. Because we are dealing with DOT, we are dealing with the regulations that abide statewide, South Carolina Uniform Act regulating traffic on highways, which limits our ability as a local government to change the speed limit on any state-owned road that is considered minor collector and residential below 35 miles per hour, unless it's in an urban district. And then they go on to continue to explain that an urban district is a street that has any structures or businesses that are less than 100 feet apart for a continuous length of longer than a quarter mile. Again, within the historic district, many of our street lengths are not beyond a quarter of a mile in length, and specifically when we're talking about the DOT roads that you'll see an exhibit in a second. So we're looking at how do we move forward with addressing these repeated requests for consistent reduced speed limits throughout the historic district to move this initiative forward, following the state regulations. Because if we change the speed limit in the historic district, carte blanche, we can't do it without DOT's consent. And that's that very first bullet point. So we, again, need to cooperate with them. And I also want to point out, because there have been some questions as to, well, what can be included? Typically, DOT will not let you reduce or even request to reduce some speed limits beyond a certain level on these major functional classification roads, which are the principal arterial, the minor arterial, and major collectors, as that may impact their performance. So what does that look like for us? When we get to this point, DOT roads that have these functional classifications that are not currently under consideration include Bluffton Road and May River Road, as well as Buck Island and Simmonsville roads. And that's specifically for this piece that we're talking about of the historic district and surrounding area for speed limit reduction. This is not to say that we can't, again, establishing a partnership with DOT, begin to pursue additional traffic calming measures along these roads. It's just the speed limit's probably going to be even more difficult to push through with DOT on those particular roads because of their classifications. So what we are discussing this evening and moving forward and proposing to DOT is on these DOT-owned roads within the historic district and just beyond it, working with us to go through our established process, and which in our traffic calming policy, as well as in our ordinance, as well as in state guidelines, to do an engineering study on each and traffic analysis on each of these sections of road, as well as town-owned roads too. So specifically, what we're talking about potentially picking up, oh, wait, it would help if I push the right thing. There we go. There we go. We're talking about coming along and getting Jason and Abel, and then when I say getting, I don't mean obtaining them and taking them, I mean getting concurrence with DOT to work with us on Jason and Abel, portions of Whispering Pine, Pin Oak, Red Cedar, as well as these are still DOT-owned south of May River Road, which are the north section of Wharf Street down to Bridge Street, and Bridge Street coming from Burnt Church all the way over to Thomas Hayward, and then coming up to Schultz and Godey. There's a small section of 8th Avenue that's DOT that was actually surprising to me. Hildebrand, and then coming all the way up Godey is what we're specifically looking at for traffic analysis and speed limit reduction.
Part of bridge we own. Why did you have that as DOT? Because I thought we voted to take that.
We did in between. I don't know if it's been completed by DOT yet or not. And I think you've got, is that Calhoun that you have identified instead of Ward?
Calhoun, but she called it Ward.
Oh, that's my bad.
Yeah,
Excuse me, that's my bad. It should be Wharf Street, yes, not Calhoun. Obviously, we can do that on Calhoun.
DOT takes a while before they complete the turnover. It may not.
But it is coming.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that even DOT, even though we own the roads, you had told me one time, we still have to go to DOT to lower the speed limit.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And that's what we're going through with this, because these are the ones we're gonna ask them to partner with us on as we look to ours as well, creating this urban core that we can then say, can we reduce the speed limits within these areas? Because as Richardson likes to rain on our parade when he does his legal research, so long as it's a public road, DOT really controls whether we can go below a certain speed limit.
So y'all have, Madam Mayor, if I may, y'all have a lot of flexibility with what you can do on your roads, but it's dependent upon what sort of classification. And one of the unique things about Old Town and the Historic District is the size and length of your roads. The DOT regulations usually, they define roads often by their length. And so for something like Pritchard Street or Thomas Hayward, whereas it might meet all the components, they don't have the requisite length to be able to act independently. So you have to kind of go, you need to get SCDOT involvement to get the whole thing taken care of.
Like I said, he likes to, when we try to do things easy, sometimes he makes it more difficult.
And then there's drainage. So, in consultation with our legal team here, what we're proposing is going ahead and formalizing this partnership with DOT through a resolution, asking them to work with us. Really, this is just a result of our experience when we asked for a reduced speed limit on Boundary Street and saw what we had to go through with DOT on that. We're anticipating that type of experience and hoping getting proactive will help expedite that and not take literally an act of the legislation to help us. Go ahead and complete our appropriate analyses, submit those, and develop a suggestion on speed limit reductions to the data supported coming out of these analyses, and then move through the typical DOT process for going ahead with approval. There would be a speed limit reduction ordinance that y'all would have to adopt as well. And then, of course, we would work through publicizing and then enforcement. And that's part of the reason why we really do want to work with DOT on this. Having hodgepodge speed limits makes it difficult for enforcement for our folks. It makes it difficult for citizens to know what speed limit they're supposed to be obeying. So consistency is definitely key. So our recommendation is that you approve this resolution so that we partner with DOT to reduce these speed limits on certain state-owned roads. And these, of course, include what are listed there for inclusion. Next steps, if you go ahead and approve this resolution, we'll go ahead and make the request immediately. We'll start initiating these traffic analyses and speed traffic analyses so that we can complete and submit that to an application for DOT. And then obviously we would have to draft an ordinance and bring that forward for 2 readings as well.
Questions?
Yeah, question. So I saw the breakdown there of roads that are major collectors and ones that are not. And I know we're going after the ones that currently are identified as not major collectors. I would, though, like for us to have some consideration and a fight with DOT to partner on those major collector roads, specifically Simmonsville and Buck Island, because the speed limits there are the speed limit is fine, but the way that people speed on those roads is insane. And as we are in an influx of development, everyone's now using those roads as ways to get off 278 and take alternate routes. It's especially concerning because those roads are majorly residential in opposition to the others. And there's a school, bordering both of those without completed sidewalks. And the speed out there is it's scary at times. So if they could work with us to be able to address some type of resolution there, I think would be a great benefit for the town and the residents on those streets.
Definitely, and we can include that in an amended motion if you'd like, because I have these individual streets listed, so if you'd like, we'll go ahead and pursue it.
Yeah.
What's the thought on Simmonsville as well then?
Yes.
Well, we've asked before and we've been denied, and I was going to ask that same thing, but I'll wait till everybody else. We can. I'm going to Dan. Dan, Fred.
I'm confused. Yes, we have asked before and we got denied, and so I'm confused. So we think now I'm trying to put a resolution is going to give us more of a partnership, or for them
We're
to.
following their policy and their guidelines.
Okay.
Well, in the historic district we're creating, they have what's called urban core, is that the definition, or urban district, which allows us, because the roads, like Richard was saying, they're not long main roads like Buck Island and Simmonsville are. You can't really, you consider them, all of them, as like a cluster, and say, how do we improve this urban core speed limit? How do we address the speed limit in the urban core? Buck Island and Simmonsville will probably be considered individually upon, like they have in the past, and that may be reaching out to our House representatives and asking for assistance with DOT, which I think they would be willing to have that conversation. It's just a matter of how well it will be received at the state level.
And there might be other traffic calming measures that we could partner with DOT on beyond just speed limit reductions on those particular roads that we could try to work through. So at the least, it's saying, hey, we have an issue. We keep hearing our citizens. They're concerned about traffic. They're concerned about safety, pedestrians. We're trying to increase foot traffic, especially in the historic district. We're building sidewalks on Buck Island and Simmonsville. What else can we do to improve safety for our folks?
So is council okay when the motion comes up to include Buck Island and Simmonsville in the motion? Because I do think we should at least pursue it. Alljoy got changed overnight, and I think we can go to Weston and ask how he did that, because it was not a minor, and now all of a sudden it's a minor arterial road, and it went from 45 to 35. And the same kind of people live on Buck Island and Simmonsville.
Changed.
Oh, it's 35.
It's 35.
Because now they can drive golf carts down there.
Changed last year.
It can be changed.
Yep.
So,
Well, and I was reading in there too, when you were showing all that stuff, it seems like it's really difficult to lower it below 25.
yeah.
Right.
It is hard.
So my question is, are we going to wait till we get their blessings to change everything before we're going to address some of the roads that we don't need their blessing on, such as Pritchard Street, where we have people
You
calling,
need their blessing.
And that's what we found out through legal research.
even on our own roads, we need their,
It's just, any road that is publicly maintained and publicly used, and publicly owned, is considered a highway for the purposes of this portion of the code. And to reduce that speed limit below 35 miles per hour, you have to fall within this classification as an urban district. And every street would need to meet, the streets would need to meet that classification. The minimum length of one of those, I believe, is a quarter of a mile. And
Less than 100 feet.
well, Pritchard, if you go all the way to the river, it's over a quarter mile.
I think we've added that.
Measured it, and I don't know that it was.
I'm
pretty sure it was short.
And that was what spurred this conversation, is we did the traffic calming analysis on Pritchard Street. It recommended reducing the speed limit. So we were getting ready to move forward with the speed limit, and we had this conversation before, and I think I did a legal research and I did a memo on it. And so when we started looking at it, that was what spurred this conversation and trying to address this holistically and look at how we can try to get all of the historic district and work on other roads as well, to meet DOT's processing guidelines.
And I think that was the reason that the speed humps were put on Thomas Hayward, because originally it was looking into putting, to reducing the speed limit there. And we had that same issue.
Okay. Hildebrand is spelled incorrectly, just for your minutes. There's no R.
There's no? I swear this.
Well, Google Maps.
No, not that I'm arguing with you. I swear I saw that on a.
Okay, any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve a resolution requesting South Carolina Department of Transportation partner with the town of Bluffton to reduce the speed limits of certain state-owned roads, including portions of Bridge and Wharf Streets, portions of Red Cedar, Whispering Pine, and Pinnock Streets, Jason and Abel Street, a portion of 8th Avenue, Schultz and Goethe Roads, Hildebrand Street, Buck Island, and Simmonsville Road.
So moved.
There's a second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Kim.
We didn't mention Pritchard Street on that.
Yeah, we did. I
Was
did
it on
say.
there? Okay.
Yes. I did say Pritchard.
We may not have said Pritchard because that's a town road, and so those were specifically calling out those DOT roads.
Shouldn't we? Okay, I thought we couldn't change our speed limits on Pritchard.
So the way that we've kind of structured it is going to the Department of Transportation. We've spoken with general counsel up there, talking to them about kind of categorizing the entire area as an urban district because of all the, the unique nature of it. And then the resolution is intended to identify the state-owned portions of that
Okay,
so that they will work with us so there's not, 35 miles, 25 miles.
okay, good deal.
Consistency.
Okay.
Aiming for
Next
consistency.
is item number 5, approval to award Cranston Engineering, PC and Gooden Mills, Kaywood, a master service agreement for stormwater consulting services not to exceed individual project budget amounts. This is something we've asked to come before council, but I thought we had what is the budget amount? So jump on that.
So that's it exactly. 5 and 6 are administrative and clerical issues. We have issued and have awarded master services agreements, which you've already approved. We're looking at aggregate amounts of a contract over the lifetime of the contract. These are 1-year contracts with potential 1-year extensions for up to 4 years. So we're talking 5 years. So these are these master services agreements that we bring forward to you that they have the potential over that 5-year contract life to aggregate over $100,000. When we issue individual task authorizations under an MSA, if they're over $100,000, those come to you still as well. But we're just acknowledging that these contracts may trigger that potential threshold, never beyond the project budget though, because that has to be within scope. When we issued our RFQU specifically for stormwater consulting services, we had these responses from these particular firms. When we went ahead and put Center for Watershed Protection, J. Bragg, McCormick Taylor, and Wolpert under contract, which you all have already approved, we excluded Goodwin Mills, Kaywood, and Cranston because they had existing MSAs with the engineering CIP group. Watershed, and when we were looking at our procurement policy, we initially thought that those MSAs could be used for the engineering services for stormwater. And this is going to be the same case in the next issue I bring forward to you as well. When we re-reviewed the procurement policy with Felicia, and we had some questions from some of these firms that were not selected and asking us to explain it. Because from their perspective, it wasn't transparent and it wasn't appropriate. So we decided it was much better to come forward and have true transparency, say, yes, everybody is fully under their individual MSAs for stormwater. This way, if we're using them for those types of services, it's clear. So that's what brings us here today. These folks were qualified. They could have been selected. They would have been selected, except for we thought that the existing MSA we had was appropriate, and it wasn't. So that's what we're bringing this forward to, examples of scope of work that they would perform, drainage, May River Watershed Action Plan, regulations, policies related to stormwater is the type of thing they would do. Again, this is potentially the aggregate over the lifespan, and individual task authorizations come forward to you. If you're in agreement with issuing these MSAs, we'll go ahead and get them under contract. And you won't see this again until all the MSAs expire and we come back with another slew. And we will ensure that appropriate MSAs are issued for appropriate task authorizations and not crossing.
Questions for Kim?
Holding you to that, Kim.
Sorry?
I'm holding you to that.
Yes, sir.
I think it's good we have Felicia helping and
Yes.
is here every day to
Yes.
find something to do and check. Anything? Okay. Is there a motion to approve authorizing the town manager to allow for total expenditures from the Stormwater Consulting Master Services Agreement with Cranston Engineering Group, PC, and Gooden Mills, Kaywood, to exceed the combined aggregate threshold of $100,000 for multiple projects during the life of the agreements, but not to exceed individual project budgets?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm guessing it's similar presentation, and we can go to motion unless there are questions.
This is the exact same presentation, just flipped.
The names have been
The
changed.
names have been changed.
So item number, formal items, item number 6 is if there are no questions of this, is there a motion to approve
Sorry, there you go. Sorry.
authorizing the town manager to allow for total expenditures from the civil engineering master services agreements with J. Bragg Consulting, Inc. and McCormick Taylor, Inc. to exceed the combined aggregate threshold of $100,000 for multiple projects during the life of the agreements, but not to exceed individual project budgets?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Anyone want to pull anything out from the consent agenda? The first item has a wealth of knowledge for anyone looking, because everyone's left. Joe, you read it. Sometimes the best part of the agenda.
I read everybody
Really,
off.
I wish these people were here. If they would just read this, they would know what we're doing. And the
have
town
two
manager,
comments.
anything you want pulled?
No, but I have two comments.
Do you want to make a motion and then talk to your own?
Yeah.
Do you have a comment you want to answer on?
I want to make a slight comment to thank the
Okay.
police department. They upgraded their graph, which I liked, 5 years, and I picked up on that. And so I would like to say, you know, and I won't worry you to death on this, at the end of the year, maybe go back to a few years and just give us an overview, you know, 5 or 6 years. But anyway, it looked good. And then the only other question I had, and I think I've asked this before, Heather, was on the area of building permits issued. I was confused. I went back to the February.
It's going to be confusing because we changed how the reports are done. They're now done fiscal year versus calendar year.
Because all the numbers changed, and the numbers appeared smaller. And when I went back and looked at the 2016 through recent, we were off 400 and, I think it was 446 numbers compared to what we had said prior that we had
Well,
done.
I will say that staff and Kevin and his staff, and I will give a shout out to our growth management coordinator, Carrie Guzman, who went back, because we've always had these questions with numbers, what permits are included, and she went through and she scrubbed it all and made sure that we're reporting accurate information and that we're matching the same reporting that finance uses so that we can do our projections and our fiscal analysis with like for like. So that's why you'll see differences. And over time, it'll be consistent and we'll be able to show those trends. So it is different, but we're reporting on fiscal year. And we found some little discrepancies where apartments, for example, weren't really captured under residential and they weren't captured under commercial. So this is the new and improved moving forward.
Okay, so.
And if you have specific questions, please always reach out.
And really, on consent, we need to pull that so we can discuss it, so we can vote on the whole agenda, just me keeping in my world how to do this. So if you have any other questions, we need to pull that and vote on the rest of the consent
Thank
agenda.
you.
But in the future, let's pull it and then vote on the remaining. Do you have something to pull before we vote on consent agenda?
Yeah, I don't see it on here specifically. I just see the Don Ryan Center. I did have a question in terms of our update of the for-profit businesses.
Let's pull that and
For
then
the
vote on the
ARPA
rest,
funding?
and
Okay.
then y'all be prepared to either get or something. So we're pulling the update from the Don Ryan Center on the for-profit businesses. Other than that,
That received the ARPA.
have y'all, would y'all approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Who can speak on the nonprofit side of the Don Ryan Center? And I hate, we don't
No,
have.
for-profit, remember, nonprofit went through Community Foundation.
Right, right.
As in who received or as in?
And like, where are we on that? Because I remember we were supposed to have like a second round go out in like July. So just wanted to see like who received it. Did we allocate the funds for that? Do we have enough for another round?
So just to, I don't think it's not in there, that's
Yeah, I
why.
don't remember seeing it.
So I believe, I'll have to go back and see, but I believe they sent that, that list was part of a weekly report that went out, similar to we did to the nonprofit one. We did award, all of the funds that were available. We are doing, the second round is starting. We did a meeting on June 28th that was open to the public for anybody that had questions, want to know how to fill the forms out. they've gone through and looked at ways to improve to allow people to turn in person and not have to do everything virtually, based on the comments that we received from council when they actually did a help session for those that had questions on how to fill it out. So that second round is going to begin. I'll have to look and see if it's advertised now or if it's about to advertise, because we haven't received our second round of funds from the federal government yet. We're also, once we get those funds in, we'll look at doing the second round for the nonprofits as well through the community foundation. But if you want to know exactly, I can pull that list and get you the list directly, so it's not part of the report if you'd like to see that. I can send that to everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Is it the same as the one that was sent in the weekly report?
Yes. That's the only round that's been awarded.
Are you good with that, Bridget? Anything else on that?
When you say awarded, checks in hand or just rewarded?
Just awarded.
When will checks in hand be?
For the for-profits? I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look and see.
Okay. And I know we usually have Chris here, but he is away, and I think it's great that we approved and supported his 3-week tour at Harvard, and I can't wait to hear the results of that. But that'd be good to get with and just look what the next round is. Anything else? Tommy, when are you leaving us?
August 12th.
So you won't be here for the council meeting?
I'll be here for August.
Then I'll keep my comments until August.
Yeah, we're like the 9th or 8th in August. It's early.
Okay. Anything else for the good of all of us? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Done.